need to get it together.
I know, it's happening.
Hello, I'm Izzy.
And I'm Jessica.
And welcome back to The Greatest Genre, aka Romantasy.
Yes.
Where we will be reading.
We will be rereading, dissecting, and fully losing our minds over the exhaustive works of Sarah J. Maas, starting with A Court of Thorns and Roses.
Today, we'll be focusing on ACOTAR, chapters 32 through 36. The first portion of the episode will be completely spoiler-free. We're going to talk about the events that happened within those chapters and this episode and previous episodes, sharing our thoughts, analyses, referencing all of those events. Second portion is going to be a very different story. Spoilers abound. Many giggles.
Many giggles, many spoilers, many theories.
For those of you who have not already torn through ACOTAR, TOG, and CC, you do not want to be exposed to part 2, and we will give you a very clear warning when to exit the podcast.
Yes, we will be releasing this episode in 2 parts, just as we did with episode 6. So we will include that disclaimer at the beginning of part 2, just in case.
So that you don't accidentally trip yourself up.
Because we respect everyone's boundaries, and if you do not want the spoilers, we will do everything in our power to protect you from them.
Correct. Some quick housekeeping notes before we get started. An adult content warning!
Yes! This podcast, like the series itself, does from time to time contain adult language and adult content. So, if that is not your thing, if you are not an adult, then this is perhaps not the podcast for you. But we hope that it is, because
certainly the podcast for us.
It's our favorite thing, and we have a good one today.
We do. And then finally, if you have not already, please subscribe to our podcast and our YouTube channel. You can listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, apparently Google Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts,
Overcast. You can find us
on the TikTok.
Really, anywhere. Yes, we are now on TikTok. You should be proud of us. We're millennials.
It's really old Jessica, just to be clear. I opened it for the first time today. She had to show me how to start one of those thingy-majiggies. Anyway, I digress. You can follow us on Instagram at _greatest genre.
Yes.
On Twitter at greatest genre. On TikTok at the greatest genre. You can email us at thegreatestgenre@gmail.com.
Or you can leave comments really anywhere. We're watching. We love to hear from you all. But yes, our Instagram is definitely probably the most reliable place
the main source of truth, if you will.
Updates and links to any of our other channels. Instagram is a very good place to go.
Correct. And speaking of comments, please keep them kind. We love this genre. We love the community. And we can all disagree on which Faye is finest while being respectful of one another. And now, Jessica.
Yes, Isabel.
I think it is time to go over the wall.
Yeah.
Go back to Prithian and under the mountain and head into chapters 32 through 36 of A Court of Thorns and Roses.
All right, here we go. I've kept them short and sweet, but I put a little bit of the spice back in there.
I just love your flair.
Oh, thank you. I'm so glad somebody does.
I am obsessed with you, as you well know. So.
Okay. Chapter 32.
Wait,
Feyre?
before we begin.
Oh my god.
Let's cheers.
Every time I
know,
get
we have to get better about that.
Okay. Okay. Chapter 32. Feyre has arrived back to the Spring Court, and it is a mess. A disaster.
It's not pretty.
She reunites with Alice, who seems to be the only one around, and Alice spills all of the tea, finally, about everything that has been going on in Prithian. There's a lot to unpack there, which we will do. And at the end of all of these revelations, which leave Feyre pretty shocked. As rightly so.
Yes, exactly.
But at the end of all of these revelations that Feyre receives from Alice, Feyre demands that Alice show her how to get under the mountain, and she sets off determined to rescue Tamlin and Lucien. Very gallant.
I'll go Feyre. She's a brave one.
Chapter 33. Feyre journeys under the mountain. Well, she journeys underground towards the mountain, and it is dark and scary. Chapter 34.
Amazing stuff.
I'm not joking. It's literally the only sentence I have. Chapter 34. Feyre is caught by the Ator in this sort of network of underground tunnels leading her towards the mountain, and is brought before Amarantha. And in a really very disturbing and dramatic sequence of dialogue, which we will, as always, unpack in excruciating
Great detail.
Feyre makes a deal with Amarantha to free Tamlin so long as Feyre completes 3 tasks or solves a riddle. Feyre then takes a pretty nasty beating and is thrown into a cell. Chapter 35, Feyre wakes up in said cell. She is beaten and battered and broken up pretty good.
I think my note says Feyre wakes up in what only be described as a fucking state.
Yeah, she kind of seems like she'd been through a meat grinder. It's not fun. It's very, actually, my next sentence is 2 words, very bleak.
Very bleak.
Very bleak. Lucian sneaks in to heal her. It's very hot.
Always?
It's just always very
so
hot when Lucian
problematic.
is involved. Feyre is then hauled back into the throne room where Amarantha has Rhysand torture Lucian until Feyre gives up her real name, since it is not Claire Better.
No.
And then Amarantha presents her with the riddle, which stumps pretty much everybody, and Feyre goes back to her cell. Chapter 36, the first trial, arrives, and Feyre has to battle a very nasty, very large worm, and does, in fact, come out victorious against all odds. And as she is hauled back to the dungeon, she hurls a piece of bone at Amarantha.
So many things to say about the worm.
We're going to get to the worm, don't you worry. But that brings me to the conclusion of our chapter summaries today.
Amazing stuff, Jessica.
Thank you very much. I had a lot of good content to work with, so I really, it's all Sarah.
So should we jump right into chapter 32 and the state in which the spring court is in?
I don't really see that we have a choice. Yeah, we can start at the spring court. My notes really started with the history that Feyre
receives from Alice.
Is given from Alice.
I had just a few notes. My notes mainly start there as well, but as she's inferring what's happened to Lucian, Tamlin, I think that that's still alive. It was giving us a little bit of those survival skills that she had honed growing up, and those are the skills which help her survive
the worm. Which one is worse, the worm or the boggy?
Oh no, that's a tough. I think the boggy has the worst name, but the worm, I think we have to wait until we get there to fully dissect. But even as Alice is telling her the tale, as she's explaining everything that has been going on the last couple of chapters, Feyre the entire time is looking for signs of struggle. She's saying, does it look like this person, like, is there blood, wherever?
Yes.
Like, she's actually really, really focusing on all the details of her surroundings, and it's just reinforcing her skill level and how that keeps her alive.
I think that's a
on.
great observation, and I think I think it was a great way for Sarah to remind us that this is really who Feyre is.
She's teeing her up for the next couple of chapters a bit.
We've gotten used to Feyre.
Happy Feyre.
Happy, floaty, fairy Feyre.
Which she deserved.
Which is great, but
Yes.
I think you make a great point. I think this is a very organic way for SJM
right back into that
to
mode.
remind us that Feyre is this very
savvy,
instinctive, sharp survivor.
Yes, and so that's just a couple of things that I picked up with the language that she had. And while Alice is explaining, she then goes into the story about Amarantha.
Yeah, so Feyre is finally getting all of the answers.
Finally
she
clued in.
always knew that there was more going on than what Tamlin and Lucian were telling her. And we do find out why they weren't telling her things.
Verbatim, Alice says, we were not allowed, Tamlin was not allowed to breathe a word of this to you. None of us were.
Everything that they told you was everything that they could tell you.
Yes. So we have to give Tamlin a little bit of grace.
We do.
But
we do.
some of his actions I still struggle a little bit.
No, I have
but
some notes for Tamlin as well, and I'm for all of the. I don't want all of the resand. I don't want the resand brigade to come for me too hard, because I am going to be fair.
Yeah, of course.
In my literary criticism of both characters.
But I think we should summarize the story that we hear from Alice about Amarantha.
Yes, I want to talk for a considerable minute about Amarantha's history, because it is really important and it's actually quite rich.
So first of all, before we get into it, how do we think we pronounce her sister's name? Clythia?
Clythia, yeah.
Clythia? I think it's Clythia.
I think it's Clythia.
Okay. I thought we should just get that out of the way.
It's definitely not Clydia.
That would be unfortunate for a number of reasons.
Mostly because it would be very impossible for you and I to talk about her without giggling on this podcast. So we're going to say Clythia.
Clythia. Got it. Okay. Yeah. So to summarize quickly what Alice explains to Feyre, she gives Amarantha's backstory.
Well, first of all, Amarantha was one of Hybern's
fiercest
generals. Mm-hmm. Which, shout out to Hybern for making women generals in your army.
It's true.
Gotta say it.
Actually, some of the greatest villains in these stories are women.
Well, that's because we're
the cleverest.
We're reading a Sarah J. Maas novel, and that is why we love her, because of strong female
characters.
leads.
Let's say it again.
But Hybern is a man, right? Ruling a kingdom.
And he
has a male. I'm so sorry. Unforgivable. He has appointed this female as one of his generals, and I just want to point out that that's, I respect that.
Yeah. Don't respect him, but respect that.
No. But, we love women being put in leadership positions.
Correct.
Especially in the military. Fought during the war, obviously on the side of Hybern, Amarantha did. And her sister, Clythia, I guess, was also fighting in the war?
Yes. She, I think, in some lesser capacity to Amarantha, but she was there, basically.
And she seems to be the only being, really, that Amarantha
had any sort of affection towards
about.
Correct.
Besides her own ends. And she really just seems to be a kind of a sadist. Alice says she delighted in torture and killing
because
and
you know
blood.
What? Normally when you hear a villain story, it starts from somewhere. Very rarely do you hear a villain became a villain just like out of the blue. But that doesn't seem to be any kind of early on redeeming
the really
qualities.
Compelling villains are the ones that have
some nugget of humanity about them.
Right. Yes.
And there's just none of that here. Besides affection for a sister,
no,
but not even
like
really.
A sadist and a sociopath.
Yes. So her sister Clythia fell in love with the human general, Jurian.
I have absolutely no idea how that could have happened during this war.
It's like, when were they crossing paths? Certainly not at a Starbucks.
Alone. Like, when was in a setting where they could, like, be flirting with each other. You know what I mean? Like,
perhaps
I just have a lot of
tryst
questions.
you always do.
I just have a lot of questions about how this came to be. So, yes, Clythia fell in love with Jurian, who pretended he was in love with her, too, but he was really just using her for information. Then when
Which I kind of get. If Amarantha is your sister and the Fae are enslaving the humans, you kind of got to do what you got to do.
Okay, I just want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly. So you are taking the side of the mortal man who...
I'm taking the side that's not Amarantha.
Lied. This isn't Amarantha. This is Clythia, who is not Amarantha.
No, I feel bad for Clythia. Actually, I feel devastated for her.
And Jurian lied to her and used her, and then he tortured and butchered her.
Okay, when you say it like that, I'm obviously not taking his side.
Okay, that's why I wanted to clarify. And when Amarantha heard about this, and what I find really interesting is that Alice said she couldn't bring herself to forbid Clythia from seeing him or from killing Jurian or anything like that. But when she found out what Jurian had done to Clythia, and by the way, Alice does mention that she scattered bits of Clythia across Prythian for Amarantha to find.
Jurian did or Amarantha
Jurian did that.
That's horrible. I don't disagree with the method of finding out information. I disagree with everything that came after that. Who hasn't slept with someone not for that, but for other reasons?
Been honeypotting.
No. I'm just saying, at a time of war, there are worse things you can do than have sex with the enemy. An enemies to lovers
we
trope.
all love the enemies to lovers, but that's not what this was.
I mean, everything that came after that was wildly inappropriate.
I'm just
to
saying,
be
I think
clear.
his intentions were
Anyway.
always nefarious.
Yes.
I love this quote, though. When Amarantha found out, Alice says her rage could have brought down the skies.
I know.
And
you can
love
see
female
it.
rage.
And also, just based on how she is in later on chapters, you could just visualize it as well, can't you?
Yes. No, it's great. I can see the montage.
I know, me too. When they're
playing out
explaining
across
it,
the scene, and it's like the sounds
and
are
Alice's
sort of muted
voices over telling the story.
But you just get great shots of whatever actress plays Amarantha just like
screaming into the sky. They
Yeah.
need to hire you for the Hulu special,
I'm
Jessica.
here. I'm waiting. But the King of Highburn forced her to stay her hand because she was a soldier at the end of the day and her orders were elsewhere. But eventually, we actually find this out from Lucian, I think the details of it later in these chapters. But they did eventually have their one-on-one, Jurian and Amarantha.
Jurian
Did not
come
last
out
very
on top.
long. Once it was just the two of them on the field, Jurian did not last very long, and Amarantha hauled him off and basically quit the war effort for months and spent months torturing him.
Which is just horrible.
I mean, it's enough to make your bowels watery, don't you think?
Oh, Jessica, we need to talk about that later because I need her to find a different way of saying that someone's nervous. It's just...
I'm sorry, I saw an opportunity. I had to take it. And did
watery
I won't
bowels.
I won't do it again. By the end of the torturing, she decided to honor Clythia's promise to Jurian that he would live forever.
By taking a
She
finger bone.
She took a finger bone
And
and
an
an
eyeball.
eyeball, which now lives in
She
a ring
wears
on
in a
her
ring.
finger, and somehow using some kind of spell.
Because she's quite powerful.
I have some notes about that. I want to dive into her powers, actually, because it was really interesting to read back about how her powers differ from that of the High Lords. Mm-hmm. But through some sort of spell work, she managed to trap Jurian's consciousness.
So he's just been
Which
chilling
is
for
kind of-
500 years.
Yeah, kind of like, I think of that also as like his soul is now trapped on her body indefinitely. So she seems like a lovely woman.
Really fun to be around.
Yeah, so that's our first bit of information that Alice dumps onto us and, via Feyre. Mm-hmm. And then, after explaining about who Amarantha is and why she's here and how all of this came to be, she talks about the hold that Amarantha has on Prithian. So it's kind of like we get
And
her
part of that
backstory in the lead up, and now we're getting... Here's exactly what's going on in Prithian.
And part of that is because she played the repentant emissary. She gained everybody's trust again.
Yes, after the war. Oh, and she butchered all of her slaves instead of freeing them. And then they all went back to Highburn. And then I think it was 100 years ago. Well, 100 years ago, she came back to Prithian playing the emissary.
Gained
was
everyone's
going around
trust.
to all the courts.
Except for Tamlin, who didn't trust her still.
Tamlin and Rhys didn't trust her. And I find this to be a very naive move on the rest of the High Lord's part.
Yeah.
I understand that
it's a story.
It's a story and things had to happen this way, but if it were me,
well,
I would be like,
maybe they need some high ladies. Anyway,
there was a ball in her honor that was thrown
to have all the High Lords in one place.
Correct.
And then she drugged them and stole all the powers.
Yeah, using another curse, another kind of
A
spell.
spell.
She had stolen.
Put it in everyone's drink.
She had stolen an unholy spell book from the King of Highburn. More to come on that. Yes. This is why all of the High Lords are weakened. Because Alice tells Feyre that because of this potion that they drank in the wine, their powers became prone. They were exposed.
And
she stole them
all.
Interesting.
Although she doesn't actually have full access to them.
She cannot wield them.
Yes.
And so this gets into my notes about this. I think it's really interesting. The High Lord's magic is all very unique to their courts. And it's almost, it seems to be a byproduct of the High Lord's relationship to their court, their people, their land.
The land, yeah.
Which is
Which would explain why she has no access to it, since she is not of Prithian, and also...
But it also makes sense. Like, I love that rule, because it makes sense. Like, that's why Tamlin has to do what he does on Calanmai, because he has to read... Like, the magic is just as dependent... Stop. The magic is just as dependent on him as he is upon it.
Yeah.
Like, it's a very interconnected relationship. Their power and the earth and them as individuals. Like, and Alice tells her magic likes rules. Mm-hmm. So I think that's why she can't wield their powers. She can lock them away, but she cannot wield them herself, because they are not hers.
It's almost like her powers are more like a witch. Like, yes. She needs...
I'm sorry, what?
Oh, a bitch.
She now rules as High Queen, because she has managed to subjugate. And I also think that it's why she created this kind of bastardized court under the mountain, because I don't think the magic of the land would have allowed her to take up residence in any of those other courts.
She picked a place of neutrality.
Because that power belongs to that High Lord.
And so Feyre...
I just found that to be really... I was very impressed by that subtle... We love it when the magic system makes sense. I think it's a very well-crafted magic system that she's woven here.
No, SJM is a genius when it comes to this kind of stuff.
I thought it was very well
done. And poor
done.
Feyre is sitting there listening to all of this, being like, oh my god, I was missing all of this.
Yeah.
I have a couple notes about how... Like, Alice gets really angry at Feyre.
I think Alice is just really angry.
I think Alice is, first of all, she's scared, and she's sad, and she's now got to find her boys and survive.
I think a lot of people are in the Spring Court are very frustrated with the fact that they came so close, and then Tamlin sent her away.
Yeah. I don't think it's fair to be hurling accusations at Feyre, though.
She's emoting. Alice is emoting. She has not been able to speak frustrations like this for years.
Right. But she gets mad at Feyre being like, if you hadn't been so blind to your own heart. And it's like, who hasn't been blind to their own heart before? I get it. She's angry. But there's a lot of anger towards Feyre. It's especially earlier from Lucien and now from Alice. I don't think it's fair when Feyre was asking more questions and she was being denied those answers to then get angry at her when she didn't put the pieces together, in the nick of time, and she was literally drugged and put in a carriage and sent back to the mortal realms.
Well, and I also think it takes the romance out of it a little bit if you found out that you were, a piece on a chessboard without knowing it. So that might have even stalled things further if she had figured it out. I think... I agree with you. This is not Feyre's fault in any way, but I do want to counter that I think Alice is just having a moment here
also having a really bad day.
She's having a really bad day. We find out that her boys are in hiding. Their parents are dead. I mean, she is...
And did she go over the curse in this, too? Does she explain the curse?
Yes, she explains the curse on Tamlin. That's the next section that I have here. So after Amarantha takes the High Lord's power, establishes herself as High Queen, she's now trying to politic, basically. And Tamlin sends Lucien to treat for peace with her and say, just leave us alone. Amarantha, anyway, it
ends badly.
This does not end well. Lucien tells her to, crawl back into a shithole or something like that, which is
Amarantha ends up torturing him.
She pulls out his eyeball with her own fingernail and then scars his face. Sends him back to the Spring Court. Tamlin apparently vomits, which is a detail that I feel like Alice could have left out.
Yeah.
Just not hot.
No.
Not great. And then Amarantha decides to throw the
ball in Tamlin's honor to apologize or whatever.
She throws the mask ball so that everybody wears masks and Lucien doesn't feel bad about his messed up face.
And is this kind of where you're like, people... Can we please put 2 and 2 together?
How many balls does this woman have to throw before you guys catch on?
We realize she does not mean well.
A party with Amarantha? I'm RSVPing no. No, thank you. No, not ever.
And then how does Alice say that the curse can be broken?
So, at this masquerade ball, Amarantha says... she tells Tamlin that she wants him to be her lover and consort, and and then all will be well. And Tamlin says, I would rather marry a human. I would rather take a human into my bed than you. And then he says,
just a little
ouch.
Yeah.
For us. Tough. And then he says to Amaranth that even your sister preferred the company of mortals to you. And that apparently seemed to be
the breaking point?
Too far for Amarantha, because she laughs and laughs and laughs, and then she says, okay, I'll make you a deal then. She gives Tamlin 7 times 7 years to find a mortal girl with hate in her heart for fairies. So much hate that she would kill one of Tamlin's men. Specifically, it had to be one of Tamlin's men in an unprovoked attack. And then he had to find this girl who killed one of his men, make her fall in love with him, and he had to fall in love with her. And then if that happened...
she had to declare her love to his face, basically.
Yes.
And the curse would be broken.
And then the curse would be broken and he would get his powers back.
Or he has to sleep with her. With Amarantha. Or he has to be her lover, his consort.
Yeah,
right?
I guess if he became her lover and consort, everybody's masks would come off. But I don't think she was ever intending on giving him his full powers back, because they are more powerful than she is. Like, she has all of this knowledge of spells, and she does have some raw power.
She's using everything that she's fighting dirty. She's using everything that she's got in her arsenal to make sure that she can stay level.
She is and Feyre asks Alice, she says, is Tamlin stronger than her? And Alice said yes.
Yeah. I think all the High Lords are.
They are.
When they're not in their weakened state.
Correct. So this kind of brings us to everything that Feyre now knows, and she's reeling, of course, as we all would be. And so she has this crushing sense of failure, of guilt. I mean, it kind of reminiscent of the first few chapters where she feels like everybody's fate was on her shoulders and she's let them down. And what does she do?
She decides to go after the
but
man she
loves.
to
go and rescue him, and it's a really awesome sort of reverse of what you typically see in a fairy tale, right?
When the guy goes off to
the man riding up on the white horse to rescue the damsel in distress. I think it's really beautiful the way that it's kind of reversed here.
Yeah, and I think it's really lovely to read about just her determination and her unwillingness to back down, basically, when Alice tells her, I don't even remember how many times in this chapter Alice is like, you will die when you go down there. Don't go. And she is like, tell me the way.
And I also love that it's not that she is like fearless. Like, she is afraid.
And that is woven into every single sentence. I mean, her knees are shaking.
Terrified.
She uses the wool to keep her upright. She
is constantly
fully aware of her own fear.
Battling panic and forcing herself to keep her head clear, because she knows that the second she gives in to her fear, she's dead.
Yep.
So there's just some incredible mental strength going on here, some incredible willpower, and some physical strength as well later on in these chapters too. It's just all really very
I love
impressive.
this version of Feyre. I mean, I hate to say that because it's not like her happiest self, obviously, but it is just her resilience that she shows, and it's what reeled me in right at the beginning to this character.
I was about to say, I feel like this is really the heart of what sets Feyre apart from the rest of the characters that we know, is that she can be soft and she can be happy and she can be,
but she doesn't back away from a fight,
and artistic. But man, when she has to ante up, she does so in a really big way.
Yeah, because I have some notes about some other characters and the way that they act when confronted with.
Yes, I think we both.
So chapter 33, Dark and Scary Tunnels.
Yep, Dark and Scary Tunnels, really nothing to note here.
Except for the 3 things that Alice says not to do, which is worth noting.
Oh, yes, before Feyre goes underground.
She warns her about 3 things. She goes, don't drink the wine, don't make deals with fairies unless your life depends on it, and don't trust your senses. And then she also reveals,
first.
She does really try, really hard.
She tried.
And then she does reveal one thing that she says, that there's one part of the curse that I cannot tell you. And even me saying, I can't tell you
Yeah,
one
I
part
think
of the
she
curse.
says, like,
she's
my
like, my bones are
like,
rejecting
crying
me.
out against it. Yeah.
And yeah, just Feyre makes her way through the dark until the Atoll finds her. Very scary.
The Atoll is very scary.
And
eerily similar to how she
painted him before. There was one little note from this chapter that I did pick out, which was that I love that Feyre tells Alice to go to Nesta should she need protection.
Yes, I did love that.
She goes like, I knew without a shadow of a doubt that Nesta would protect her.
I believed that.
And
too.
I just when I was reading that, I could just hear Nesta, her lines in the previous chapters being like, it wasn't right, and like this would be right.
Yes.
Protecting someone when in need. And
Feyre telling Alice she knows who you are. She knows everything.
And then this was a small chapter, but I did really enjoy the really powerful imagery that SJM evoked. Like, it was going into the bowels of Prithian, right?
Earth, yeah.
And just the guttering candles. Like, Feyre must be so scared.
No, there was a lot of...
Imagine going to just what is almost certain death.
I mean, I thought a lot about Lord of the Rings, about
Frodo
and Sam in the tunnels with the spiders. I thought
giving
about
Mines of Moria a little bit.
Mines of Moria. I thought about in The Hobbit when Bilbo is in the tunnels where he encounters Gollum and he's lost. So there was a lot of imagery,
like hissing, braying, like guttering candle. Like it just seems incredibly ominous, which is all brought to fruition when the Ator catches her and presents her in chapter 34 to Amarantha.
Yes, we meet the Ator. Yuck, no thank you, very scary.
Ew.
I don't ever want him to touch me. Yuck.
So gross.
So she's hauled into this throne room.
And Amarantha is just immediately such a good villain. Like, you fucking hate her right off the bat. At least I did. Like, the depths of her cruelty. Seeing Claire Bedore, like, up there.
Yeah, I did want to talk about that. My second note is that Tamlin is catatonic.
Literally does not say one thing.
He doesn't move.
Doesn't even
blink.
make eye contact with her. And this is what we get the my bowels turned watery phrase.
I thought that was with the worm.
No, it was here. I think it's when Amarantha starts threatening her, or when she thinks that her torture is imminent from the Atoll, which it is.
Well, yeah, and listening to Amarantha talk about torturing Claire.
Calls her her cries sweet music,
and she's like, my sweet Claire, my dear Claire.
I could visualize it so well in a film. Like, this is one of those villains that'd be really fun to play.
I was thinking about that too.
Like, it would be a blast.
Yeah.
The villain's always
she's giving Cersei Lannister to me.
Oh yeah, I do like that. I don't know what to feel about Tamlin not saying anything. Like, it was in stark contrast with the fact that Feyre was immediately like, I don't care. I'm going after him. I love him.
Yeah.
And her determination and her resilience, and then to be met with that.
So let's just, because
and I'm trying to think about it from his point of view.
I think I have the same notes as you do at the end of the day about his choices during this sequence.
But he's also terrified.
I think at the very jump, he has just watched this poor human girl be tortured for days and days and days.
Because Amarantha thinks it's Feyre.
So Feyre walks in, and I think Tamlin is like, if I react at all, that's exactly what's going to happen again, if not worse. What I
don't react, she'll get a clean death. Unlikely.
What I don't understand is why he continues to behave this way under the mountain, even after the deal is struck.
Yeah.
And Amarantha has given her word. And everybody knows who everybody is.
Mm-hmm. And you can't just back out of a fairy bargain, otherwise bad things happen.
Right. In this initial scene, I understand why he is just keeping himself on the tightest leash ever. Because I think he is just so terrified. If he gives Amarantha anything, slight indication of a reaction, that she's just going to tear Feyre to shreds. The 3 tasks, I liked the exchange between Amarantha and Feyre. I think they're 2 very different, very interesting,
but almost have
female
respect
characters.
For each other.
That's what I'm saying. I think, when Claire was hauled in front of her, I think it was what Amarantha is used to. Mm-hmm. She's used to terrified, helpless, mewling, weak humans. I think Feyre sets her back on her heels a little bit. I think she is playing like this really amuses her. But even the next day, when she has Feyre brought back in front of her, she's like, I couldn't sleep last night. And I figured out why. It's because I don't know your name. But I think just in general, this is not what Amarantha has in her mind about humans. And remember, Alice also says she's probably been sending her spies into the human realms to test your strengths, to figure out what your weaknesses are. And so I think Amarantha is trying to do a little bit of
recon, if you will,
testing here.
Yeah.
And kind of
that's a good point.
See what this human might be made of. And so I just thought it was I thought this negotiation between the two of them was very interesting because Feyre's going back into that savvy survival instinct part of her brain. She's trying to look for a way that she can get an edge in this bargain. She knows she's not going to get what she wants, but she wants to at least have a fighting chance in whatever this deal is that she makes. They're such different women, but Feyre also has the realization that she realizes that like Amarantha is also a huntress.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
I think I also figured out the one thing that was giving me pause is loving her as again, don't love Amarantha like as a villain though, excellent villain.
You
right?
have to have a good villain to have a good story.
But here's like what pissed me off. Normally with a villain, and my favorite villains are those with a code, right? Or it's like it's like a twisted sense of honor almost, and like they adhere to the same rules.
They have a why.
Exactly.
They need to have a why.
And the one thing that irked me was when they struck the bargain and they discussed the 3 trials or solve the riddle. She immediately has Feyre beaten, and it's like it doesn't allow her to unless like if Lucian hadn't come down and healed her. Yeah. It'd be over before it even started. And like for me, it like negates it negates even having.
I mean, she had a broken nose. I don't think it would have.
Getting beaten within an inch of your life?
She wasn't beaten within an inch of her life. They broke her nose. It just hurts a lot. I hear what you're saying though.
Yeah. This continues in later chapters as well.
Because Amarantha is completely and entirely without honor. And I agree with you. I think the most compelling villains are the ones that do have honor. But
in their own twisted way.
But those inch a little bit more towards the morally gray as opposed to the true villains. Like, think about Voldemort.
Think about Joffrey.
Voldemort, Joffrey, Sauron.
Yeah.
They don't...
No, I hear what you're saying.
They don't have a shred of honor. They are true, really just the depths of evil villains.
You are correct. It just really pissed me off. And I guess that's the whole point. SJM is succeeding.
Like it was nasty.
I was like, hang on a second, how is this even supposed to be a thing?
And you know what? I wasn't expecting it either.
No.
She says, I really thought a greeting worthy of my hall.
I really thought that it was going to be like, okay, Feyre gets to complete 3 tasks in her current state that she is in.
It reminds us that she is a villain. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So now we're down in the cell.
She's got a broken nose. Black eyes.
Broken nose, black eye. Her jaw seems to be in a lot of pain, which is probably fair. I've never been hit in the face before, so.
Only by a basketball. It's not fun.
Yeah, that'll do it.
That'll do it.
Yeah. Okay, so Lucian comes into the cell and heals her because we find out now that Lucian has healing powers. She has given Lucian back some of his powers to try and
entice Tamlin to accept her offer. So still on the table is consort and lover.
Apparently,
even though he's still refusing
Rhysand
it.
isn't doing it for her, which I find
to be
unlikely.
Do we know at this point that he is Amarantha's whore?
Yeah, everybody calls him that.
Oh, that's right. I get so scared to give spoilers.
So Lucian comes down and heals her, and he's like, "What are you doing here? You're so stupid." And Feyre's like,
"I love him." Now.
She's
Let's
like,
not negate the plot.
I'm already here. So can
Let's
we just
fast forward.
Move on. Like, can we just get on with it?
She gets dragged back to the throne room.
Once again, it seems that Rhysand has at the very least omitted truth from Amarantha since he visited them all at the Spring Court. And Feyre noticed, she's like, Rhysand knew exactly who I was. He did not mistake. Like, he says all humans look the same to me. And she's in her mind.
She's sitting there being like, that's absolutely ridiculous. You know exactly who I am.
Right.
I did have a little note that said, even in her weakened state, as she's getting dragged back into the throne, again, she's looking out for escape tactics. She's looking for weakened spots, things that she could use to her advantage later. And this is when we see Lucian's 4 brothers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who are described as tall, warrior-like beings with flaming red hair.
And handsome faces. Although they don't seem to be very nice.
Hot.
Seem like they could be a fixer-upper.
Hot Weasleys?
They do. I mean, listen,
giving
I have
Weasley.
It's giving tall, scary, hot Weasleys.
Maybe like Bill or Charlie, because Charlie works with dragons.
Yeah.
And Bill is cool. Like, he has a fang in his ear. It's not giving Percy.
No, and it's not giving Ron. Maybe if Fred and George were bad boys, they could be Vanceras. You know, I wasn't not into it. We're just going to leave it there. I have more notes for the spoiler section.
I think my note says, we see Lucian's remaining 4 brothers. We hate them.
Do we?
Well, that's what my notes. In this chapter, we do.
So anyway, no, and like I said, I have more notes for that in part 2. But Lucian, I just have to say, okay, so Lucian has come to her cell and healed her. He is now ready to die.
Again, Lucian,
instead of giving Amarantha her name.
To go back
and
to a previous
I would like
point.
to ask the question to the class: how has Feyre not switched sides? I do not actually understand.
Why
at this
does he
point.
still not gotten a raise?
Oh my God, you're right. He's not getting a raise. Well, he has gotten some of his powers back.
I guess that's a raise.
He has gotten some of his powers back. But if I were in Feyre's position, I would be seriously asking myself, have I picked the wrong
correct
guy?
High fae, strong-jawed male.
Have I? 'Cause I think maybe no.
I mean, you know where I stand on the issue.
It's like, switching sides. Like, I really feel like
this would have done it.
I don't understand how she's not even acknowledging the fact.
Love is blind.
Anyways, that's the end of that's it.
I do want to go over quickly the riddle.
I sat there and I was like, oh my God, Lucian is literally willing to die. Like, she's already down under the mountain. Who cares if she knows Feyre's name? But he is willing to die before giving up Feyre's name. And to Feyre's credit, instead of letting Lucian be tortured, she
says it right away.
Her name. And Amarantha says something interesting.
She goes, it's of the old
she
language
recognizes
or
Feyre's
something.
Name,
Mm-hmm.
of the Fae's oldest dialects. And so I have notes about that in part 2.
Amazing. I'm excited to hear what they are because I don't have any on that.
Yeah, I was up very late last night.
And then finally, Amarantha gives Feyre the riddle that can basically halt all 3 tasks. Doesn't have to do them if she can solve the riddle.
Will you read it out for me?
I will read it out for you. I have it right here.
Okay, great.
So, there are those who seek me a lifetime, but never we meet. Mm-hmm. And those I kiss, but who trample me beneath ungrateful feet. At times I seem to favor the clever and the fair, but I bless all those who are brave enough to dare. By large, my ministrations are soft-handed and sweet, but scorned, I become a difficult beast to defeat. For though each of my strikes lands a powerful blow, when I kill, I do it slow. ...
Excellently done.
And I can't tell. I think I should save my comments for part 2.
You should.
Okay.
You should.
And then my final
We're just going to leave it at this. Here's all I'm going to say. When I first read this riddle, I did have an answer that came screaming to my mind, and then I immediately thought to myself, no, it cannot be that obvious.
I feel much the same.
Okay, great. So she tells Feyre the riddle, and then and when she tells Feyre the riddle, Feyre's mind
goes foggy.
Goes kind of foggy. I think Amarantha's
struggling to...
Amarantha's playing dirty again, I think. I think she's using her magic to make it
so angry.
difficult. Yeah, she's not playing fair. She is without honor.
Right.
So Then Feyre has to go back to her cell. She has to stay
Tamlin
there
is
for
still
days,
just, by the way, doing nothing.
doing absolutely nothing.
And then I did have one tiny note that said Feyre did spend some time pondering during that chapter about how Rhysand must have had power beyond belief if he is still able to trap minds in his weakened state.
Either that or Amarantha keeps him on a looser leash.
On a looser leash. Mm-hmm. So, chapter 36.
I have.
Wait.
The worm!
Oh, no. So Feyre
So gross. So
is led to a massive arena with all sorts of
with
fairies.
a whole bunch of. I just envisioned a whole arena of golems.
You know what I envisioned? Kind of like, in the Mines of Moria when they're in the hallway,
yes.
and then all
the
the Moria
goblins
orcs start coming down, like scuttling like bugs.
Oh my god, yes.
That's how I envisioned this.
Now
but
I
like,
want to watch
on this-
Fellowship.
I mean, like, we have some time after we finish. And we have another bottle of wine in the fridge.
Oh, don't tell me that.
I know.
Tomorrow's a school day.
So there's like many tunnels and trench, and I think it's almost like ants in an anthill, right?
I need the show to happen. I need to see it on the screen. It would be so cool and so scary.
Yes. First of all, we actually see the 6 High Lords.
We do. We
Of
see them,
Prithian
and
finally
it's only she sort of notices them
offhandedly.
and I think we're going to talk more about them next episode
definitely.
because there's
Yes.
a little bit more.
But worth noting that we finally see them, and then she is dropped into the trenches.
And Tamlin is sitting. It's 6 High Lords, and
And then
Tamlin is
Tamlin's
sitting next to her,
and she's got
Amarantha has
her hand on his
knee.
thigh or his knee, and you just see red.
Listen, as a territorial female myself,
Jeez, most suddenly.
that would just
Drive you into a rage.
Really make me see red.
Maybe you do well against the Vum.
not the verb.
Sorry.
All right, we have to. Talk
Anyway,
about it.
we
have
do.
to talk
So
about the worm.
the Midden God worm.
Will you please,
I think
Isabel,
that
read its description from the book?
Nothing would bring me greater joy.
Wait. Before
Yep.
you do this, I just want to summarize it. So Feyre's first task, Amarantha says, Rhysand tells me you're a huntress. I think you'll like this challenge.
In her sickly sing-song evil voice.
And then she's like,
hunt this. And then she like snaps her fingers, and then
Which I have
Feyre-
to say.
she has a flair.
drama
The
is
drama.
perfectly
Jessica, if you were a
executed.
villain, you would do the same thing.
I have no comment.
No, because you can see it's as if SJM wrote it for a movie or like a very dramatic television scene. She goes, okay, I'm just going to read this passage because it goes immediately into the description of
Yes.
the Vum.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, so Amarantha clicked her tongue, and I whipped my head to her. Her brows rose. Run, she whispered. Then it appeared. I ran. It was a giant worm, or what might have once been a worm, had its front end not become an enormous mouth filled with ring after ring of razor-sharp teeth. It barreled towards me, its pinkish brown body surging and twisting with horrific ease. These trenches were its lair, and I was dinner. And I just have to say, if you didn't immediately visualize the massive worm from SpongeBob, then you are a liar! A liar, an actress!
You're Louis Vuitton from China.
Fake Louis Vuitton from China! For all the Love Island UK fans
That
out
was
there.
Davide, by the way.
Yes.
Who we love.
We adore. I was also giving like the Men in Black worm in the subway. For me, I don't know if you've seen that one.
It was scary, but it was also like,
it was slightly comical to read, but in reality, this would be the most terrifying. Oh,
do you know what else
also, do you want to know
about?
But
Do you know what
Jessica,
else we have to talk about? The mud.
do you want to know else we have to talk about? The
Yes.
fact that, do you want to know what my one phobia in this world
Oh
is?
my god, are you afraid of worms?
Earthworms.
Why?
Have I not told you this
Because
story?
of this?
No, because my brother ate one in front of me when I was very small.
And that scared you?
Let me just tell you, when you see it wriggling going into someone's mouth, it
So
causes some permanent damage.
But you were fine with like spaghetti?
Yeah. Snakes, totally fine. Worms, get the fuck away from me.
Weird.
Invertebrates. Yeah. Caterpillars.
No, with you there.
Just ew.
Not down with invertebrates.
Anyways.
Except for octopi. They're cool.
I think it's technically octopuses. Just kidding. As soon as I said that out loud. Oh, no.
I'm going to tuck that one away for years later. I'm so sorry. Can you read it one more time about it's just the physical description?
A giant worm,
Yes.
or what might have once been a worm, had its front end not become an enormous mouth filled with ring after ring of razor-sharp teeth. And we're going to put some fan art up on the screen so you can...
Both the serious and the comical.
And the SpongeBob one.
Because honestly...
That's where my mind immediately went.
That's what I thought of.
I think we had the same note.
The only other thing that I did then think about was the sandworms from Dune.
Oh my god, good one. That actually, yes.
But those are not fleshy and brown.
No, it barreled towards me. Its pinkish brown body surging and twisting.
Surging and
twisting. With horrific ease.
No.
Actually is just so nasty.
It is revolting.
It is revolting, especially when you find out with the mud that she is in.
Yeah, we're gonna back up a little bit.
Which has like a chalky texture to it almost.
It's cold. It's
like coarse,
wet.
Almost.
It's like thick, and some parts of it are like really wet.
Basically, imagine the depths of hell.
The word squelch was used several times during this sequence. That she squelched through the mud. So if that gives you
mud,
slick, and the smell.
Oh my god!
And the smell is apparently like
the most disgusting thing she's ever. I think she tries not to vomit multiple times. Multiple
times she's trying not to vomit. So she takes off running from the worm through this nasty, disgusting smelling mud. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. It's worm shit.
It's worm poo, and also there are decomposing human.
So
maybe human and fairy, but
so this
bodies.
Worm lair is essentially just where this worm has been.
I just have to say, I'm so upset
eating,
right now.
Digesting, and excreting.
Ew.
Basically anything anybody feeds it for God knows how long. Like this, she is just
it's pretty big. I bet it's old.
She is just in a pit of worm poo. And she is now its next meal.
It's dinner. But because our girl Feyre is savvy as fuck and a survivor.
Let me just tell you, if I were thrown into this situation,
we would be dead.
No. You are afraid of tiny earthworms?
That's true. I would not do well in this trial. I think the next two
and I'm here to tell you that neither would I, okay? I would collapse and just I would be completely undone by this. This is disgusting.
No, and another testament to Feyre is
I have another note here.
From other girls.
Feyre has earned for this challenge alone
respect for the rest of the series
about her and everything else that she does. She in this moment earned the badass bitch status
because spoiler
in perpetuity.
She survives. But she notices that it is blind, which I, for one, would not have noticed. Probably because I'd be too busy being afraid.
She gets stuck in a place which should have been a death sentence, but because her scent is so masked by
she realizes
the poo,
it overshoots her. And then she starts lathering mud all over her, and then she uses the bones that she finds in the mud/worm poo to create a graveyard of bone spikes, basically, and then uses the other bones to stick into the wall and basically create a ladder. So basically, long story short, she kills the worm.
The femme, yeah. Yeah. The femme is dead, yes.
After a close call where Lucian's going on your left, which was giving Captain America and Sam from the Avengers.
Yeah,
and then she climbs
falls.
out.
She falls into the den, into the pit where it usually like sleeps, I guess. And she finds all these bones. She makes the trap, climbs out, and then lures it back to the den. And as she jumps in, clears the bones that she's laid as a trap, she does get stuck by one of them.
She gets
in her
a
arm.
nasty injury.
And her adrenaline is going so much that
she doesn't really notice
she
it, yeah.
doesn't notice it right away, but she does in fact have a piece of bone
sticking out of her
embedded
arm.
in her arm. So she kills the worm, and she's on this adrenaline high. I think we all as readers were on a little bit of an adrenaline
sweating.
high. And she takes a bit of bone,
and she's across the arena, and she
hurls
hurtles it at Amarantha.
and it lands right in front of her and splashes
Which I loved.
worm shit.
I loved that visual.
She's
like a speck. She gets it off of her. I loved that. And I have a little note about that later on in the spoiler section.
Oh.
But I had one other note, which I think that you also touched on in yours when we were discussing this, with all of the, because it's not only the high fae that are watching in the arena, it's also the lesser fairies.
I think it's mostly the lesser fairies. It's it's all of these nasty little creatures that have been drawn into Amarantha.
And I have this one note when one of them says, "What's it doing?
What's it doing?
Planning?" And it was literally Gollum.
I literally pictured Gollum. What's it doing?
Precious.
Yeah. What's it doing? Precious.
Oh my god!
No,
It was Gollum times 1,000.
Yeah.
Watching Feyre with the Midden god them. And then
I can't believe neither of us have said at this point, we are worms.
Worthless worms. Okay, Lord of the Rings or Hercules afterwards.
Don't threaten me with a good time.
And then once this is all over, Rhysand, his eyes are twinkling as he beholds Feyre's trap. She sees him smiling at her, and then at the very end, Amarantha goes,
he calls it out when one of the fairies goes, "What's it doing?"
And
Feyre
goes,
says, "The Middengard worm relies on its scent to see, and Feyre just became invisible." And I believe she makes a vulgar
gesture, which, yes, exactly.
So like this?
Or this one. Yes, a deep, elegant voice replied, "She's building a trap." And
elegant voices are not welcome at this time.
No, especially not
Fighting for our survival. Please let me
concentrate. None of that, please. And
Rude.
Thank you. Yeah, no, she makes an obscene gesture. And then at the end of this all, Amarantha is saying, "Well, you lost my court a lot of money today, Feyre." She's going through the list of people, and she's like, "Except for," then she turns over the paper and she goes, "It's everyone except for one person, it seems, bet against you." She doesn't say who it is. Feyre looks down at her arm, sees that it is not in a good state, and she then walks back to her cell,
Covered
belly in worm poo and blood
poo.
and a broken arm. And just, it's not a good situation.
No, we've left her in a tough spot.
She's in, as we would say, a fucking state.
It's been a shit show.
So I think that wraps up, unless you have any further notes that we skipped, that wraps up our portion 1 of this episode.
Yes.
Been a joy.
It has. It's always a joy,
I know.
Isabel.
I'm feeling particularly giggly this episode.
I'm very excited for part 2. For those of you who are joining us for part 2, we're very excited to deep dive.
It's going to be deep.
Lots of little nuggets to parse out here. And for those of you who are just beginning your journey through the SJM universe,
come to us!
We love you so much. We're so excited for you. And we will be back with episode 8 in just a couple of weeks.
And then a reminder that if you haven't already, you can find us on Instagram at @the_greatest genre, on Twitter at greatest genre, on TikTok, The Greatest Genre. You can email us at thegreatestgenre@gmail.com.
Yes, please send us your thoughts Let us know what you would like to hear on the show.
Mm-hmm.
And please, please, please send us your fan cast recommendations. We're going to be doing something special with those at the end of season 1, which is coming so quickly.
Oh my gosh, how is it already
we
time?
only have 2 more episodes of ACOTAR.
Oh my goodness, it's been a dream so far.
I know.
All right, so with that, we are going to sign off, and we will see some of you for part 2. We look forward to it.